Chapter 265. Resurrect, my beloved. CL by Bagelson. As Tang San opened his eyes, Tang Hao and Ian clearly a faint jewel light in their son's eyes, and a faint golden luster appeared on his skin. His spirit, energy and soul had already reached a frightening degree. Tang San stood. After first bound to his parents, he retreated around 50 meters to a wide open space in the basin. Cautiously, carefully, he brought out Xiaowu's body from the wishful 100 treasures purse, laying her flat on the ground in front of him. Tang San was extremely cautious about what should have been a very simple process. To him, this moment was far too important. Xiaowu's resurrection was a more serious matter than his own life. Raising his head to the sky, Tang San spoke silently within his heart. Deming, do you know, resurrecting Xiaowu is your last wish, but it is my only wish. Xiaowu's resurrection is equal to my existence. I don't need to promise you anything. If Xiaowu can't be resurrected, there would be no meaning in my life. There is nobody I love more than her. From the moment I saw Xiaowu, she was my destined lover. Hello everyone, I'm called Xiaowu, the Wu of Dance. My spirit is a rabbit, a very cute little white rabbit. Yours. G.E., can't you help me comb my hair? It's a bit tangled. This comb's wood is very good. My mother gave it to me. She made it herself. It's carved from first-rate sandalwood. Even if it doesn't have any decorations, it's the last thing Mom left me. Xiaowu, you really are so beautiful. G.E., help me comb my hair. G.E., you really are so stupid. Don't tell me I could live on alone if you died. I don't want you to die. I want you to live. I really wish I could live together with you, just like before. But we can't. When I'm not here, you have to properly take care of yourself, or my heart will break. Scene after scene like this constantly flashed through Tang San's mind. Seeing Xiaowu laying on the ground with a serene expression, he felt as if his heart was cut by knives. Xiaowu, we will finally be together again. I will definitely help you resurrect. I won't let you stay like this. I will forever keep you by my side, until one day, we pass from old age. Suddenly drawing a deep breath, flinging away the tears from his eyes, Tang San's right hand tightly grasped the sea god tried next to him, his left hand fishing out that replaced Xiaowu's spirit bone from the wishful 100 treasures purse. A crystalline red color spread over the spirit bone, the tantalizing aura of 100,000-year spirit bone spreading. Along with the blue silver emperor being released, one spirit ring after another rose around Tang San. The formidable mysterious heaven skill frantically operated at unprecedented speed under Tang San's urging, and a clearly visible golden blue stream of air revolved around Tang San. His 9 spirit rings flared at almost the same instant, making his body like a brilliant star. To the side, Tang Hao's fists were already tightly clenched, and Ian's every blue silver emperor leaf was trembling. Tang San raised the sea god trident up high, and golden light gushed from the trident brand on his forehead, forming a bridge with the sea god's heart. Glittering golden light instantly illuminated the whole valley, and the sea god trident's divine aura blossomed completely, enveloping Tang San and Xiaowu, enveloping Tang Hao and Ian, even enveloping everything around the ice and fire yin yang well. Ian suddenly startled discovered that she was actually growing wildly when illuminated by this golden light. The connection of their souls let her deeply feel how powerful her son was right now. The blue silver emperor aura they shared had become the best channel connecting her to the sea god's light, and that enormous divine presence flowed into her without reservations, making her cultivation frantically climb several times faster. Tang San twitched violently, and immediately, his 9 spirit rings flew up at the same time, drifting in the air above him. The pain of instantly losing his spirit rings made Tang San spit up a mouthful of blood, but his gaze was even more fervent. Tang San naturally hadn't forgotten what sea god Douluo Dalu said. Nobody could tell just how many spirit rings were needed to resurrect Xiaowu. Tang San wouldn't allow for any flaws or variables to exist. Therefore, he completely shook off all the 9 spirit rings of his blue silver emperor. The pain of that instant made even his incomparably durable body produce a dense cloud of blood. Enormous spirit power followed as Xiaowu's spirit bone in his hand entered the air, fusing together with Tang San's 6th spirit ring. Red light blossomed in the air, and that 6th spirit ring separated from his spirit ring lineup under the control of Tang San's boundless mental strength. Glittering red light spread scattered everywhere, then slowly started to condense under the shine of the divine light the sea god trident released. A red silhouette gradually formed, Xiaowu's transparent red body appearing in the air. She couldn't speak, or even open her mouth, but this was her soul, and that soul's aura was filled with sadness and worry. Her crystalline eyes watching Tang San as if telling him something. Tang San didn't pull back, resolutely looking that figure in the eyes, pausing with each syllable. He almost howled. Resurrect. My love, Ed. The shroud of sea gods light covering the sky and earth suddenly condensed, becoming an immense golden pillar of light, completely enveloping Xiaowu's soul and body. Immediately, motioned by Tang San, his first 4 spirit rings flew out simultaneously, circling around Xiaowu's soul, protecting her, floating towards the body illuminated in golden light. Vast mental strength erupted like a flash flood and poured into the sea god trident, changing into purest sea god's power and scattering. Within that golden light, Xiaowu's soul figure gave Tang San a last loving gaze. Then, that red silhouette completely merged with her body. Yellow, purple, black, 4 spirit rings in sequence, one by one slowly blended into Xiaowu's body. With each spirit ring, Xiaowu's body would flash with a ray of red light. The sea god's light grew even more intense. A soul attached to a body and a soul merged with a body were 2 completely different concepts. Whether Xiaowu's body reconstructed with the yearning heartbroken red and the crystal blood dragon ginseng could completely fuse with her soul, whether the outside spirit rings could support a complete recovery, those were the important parts of the resurrection. Tang San released his mental strength without regard for the consequences. His 7th spirit ring was also moved over, floating just above Xiaowu. If he discovered her body could continue absorbing spirit ring energy, Tang San absolutely wouldn't hesitate. His 5th spirit ring was considered the evolution of the blue silver emperor. It didn't suit Xiaowu, but his 7th spirit ring was his god-bestowed spirit ring. Its attributes absolutely wouldn't clash with Xiaowu. Layer after layer of intense red light wrapped up Xiaowu like a cocoon. Tang San's mental strength densely covered every corner of this space, meticulously sensing the changes in Xiaowu's soul and body. The merging process was very slow, but it constantly progressed. Without experiencing it firsthand, one couldn't understand just how difficult it was. This time, Tang San was profoundly aware that if he had finally helped Xiaowu's soul and physical body merge using the 10-headed fierce young serpent Niden from back then, the failure rate would have been at least 50%. But the sea god's light was undoubtedly the purest divine power. Under its light, all rejections were completely dispelled, and even if the merging process was slow, it proceeded without any problems. Sea god Douluo Dalu was right. After Xiaowu absorbed her own spirit ring and spirit bone, plus Tang San's 4 spirit rings as well, her body was already completely full. Her body originally held a monumental energy from the 2 great immortal herbs she had eaten, plus the saved-up rewards from the sea god island. Now with such immense energy and soul power from the outside, if any more was transmitted, it would absolutely be dangerous. After discovering this, Tang San relieved drew back his 5th, 7th, 8th and 9th spirit rings from the air. Even though they were only 4, these 4 were all 100,000-year level spirit rings. If you only looked on the surface, then now he was a spirit ancestor with all 100,000-year spirit rings. Only, this was also certainly the most powerful spirit ancestor in the history of the Douluo Continent. After his strength rose to the title Douluo level, and the originally 5 spirit bones turned to 6, Tang San discovered that it was a lot easier to borrow the sea god trident's divine power than when he fought BB Dong. If he had spent all his mental strength without regard for the consequences then like he was doing now, he might have been unable to endure it. But now he was doing it skillfully and easily. It wasn't that his mental strength had grown a lot. Even though it had become stronger, his mental strength progress was definitely much less than his spirit power. After all, his mental strength had risen to the peak Douluo level as soon as his purple demon eye advanced to the boundless realm. In order to substantially advance it further he would have to inherit divinity. But now the divine force he could borrow from the sea god trident was a ratio of how much mental strength he could infuse it with and transform into divine power. If he previously input 10 units of mental strength and only received 1 unit of sea god divine power before, then now 10 units of mental strength changed into fully 3 units of sea god divine power. It was under such circumstances that Tang San comprehensively supported Xiaowu's soul and body merging without feeling particularly strained. At least, right now when his mind was extremely stimulated, he didn't feel like it was anything. Even if he did, he directly ignored it. After an unknown amount of time, along with a buzzing sound, the red light Xiaowu's body had released was absorbed like rivers running into the sea. Only that red dot on her forehead representing the Sea God Island's first grade test flickered. Her soul and body had finally completed the entire merging process. If this alone couldn't make Tang San feel relieved, then the next prompt echoing in his mind made his excitement rise to a peak. Sea God's 8th trial, resurrecting partner, mission complete. 8 trial 50% complete. It is required to keep raising strength, absorbing spirit rings, spirit bones, to complete the trial. Tang San firmly believed that gods wouldn't lie. Yes, Xiaowu was resurrected. Xiaowu was finally resurrected under his untiring efforts. With a thump, the Sea God trident Tang San held fell to the ground. At this moment, he felt violent pain in every part of his body, felt his mind as weak as if his brain had been scooped out. But did that matter? No, not at all. If Xiaowu was resurrected, then what was this pain? The golden divine light slowly disappeared, and Tang San also collapsed as it vanished, falling next to Xiaowu. Even so, the instant before he lost consciousness, he still didn't forget to tightly grip Xiaowu's warm little hand. In order to perfectly resurrect Xiaowu, Tang San had released his mental strength without minding overdrawing, adding in his deep nervousness, and even more importantly the serious injuries he had suffered from giving up the spirit rings. Even he fell unconscious. Originally he didn't have to bear such great pain, but to strip off one's own spirit rings, it was necessary to be a person with great strength. If he didn't have the Sea God's light as support, Tang San not only couldn't have regained his stripped spirit rings through hunting, even the blue silver emperor spirit would be crippled. Even with the Sea God's light, in order to perfectly resurrect Xiaowu he had stripped all his 9 spirit rings in one go, and the pain from this was as fearsome as being flayed and having his tendons torn out. But at that time Tang San hadn't even looked distracted, really because his mind was too focused. Those 9 spirit rings were naturally enormously powerful, especially the 500,000 year spirit rings. But the stronger the spirit ring, the greater the influence from stripping it. One might say that this forceful removal had already injured his vitality, and even regaining 400,000 year spirit rings afterwards couldn't avert it. This was also when his body had passed one strengthening by the Sea God's light, plus the foundation of his 6 great spirit bones to protect him. Otherwise, stripping his spirit rings like this would have directly harmed his foundation, and he would never have recovered. After an unknown amount of time, when Tang San awoke from unconsciousness, it was already dark all around. Violent pain came from all his bones and muscles. That kind of convulsive pain was basically unbearable, and Tang San couldn't help giving a low moan. Ah, little San is awake. His mother's voice echoed by his ears. When Tang San wanted to open his eyes, he discovered his eyelids were too heavy, but he still managed to call out, Xiaowu, how is Xiaowu? Before he had finished speaking, Tang San's senses had already recovered somewhat, and he discovered his body was surrounded by warmth, as if he lay in a soft embrace. I'm here, don't move. A voice like heavenly music echoed in Tang San's ears. Even though his physical condition was extremely bad right now, that voice was like a powerful stimulant, prompting Tang San to directly open his eyes. The moon was bright but stars sparse, and the surrounding light was extremely dim, but Tang San still saw, right next to him, a face so delicate it might break from a puff of wind. She seemed even more beautiful than before. In the moonlight, her skin glistened with the luster of white jade, her long scorpion braid hung down her side, and a pair of wet dark eyes watched him anxiously. Within those eyes was no longer vacancy or blankness, but only endlessly deep emotions. Xiaowu, Xiaowu. Tears flowed fiercely from Tang San's eyes. Even he himself had forgotten how long it had been. Ever since Xiaowu sacrificed herself for him, he had never been truly happy. Seeing the real, living Xiaowu in front of him, Tang San's throat closed as if choking on something. He had 1,000 things he wanted to say, but right now he couldn't finish one sentence. You're so stupid. Deming and they. Big tears tumbled from Xiaowu's eyes. Previously Tang San was always unconscious, and after she woke up she was always looking after him without minding anything else. Now Tang San was awake, and she couldn't hold back the tears of grief. In order to resurrect her, the 2 most important partners in her life had sacrificed themselves, and her beloved had also grievously injured himself. Xiaowu, don't cry. Deming and wouldn't want to see you grieve over them, so once I become the Sea God, I'll definitely summon their souls to see you again. Having spoken thus, Tang San's excitement over finally having resurrected Xiaowu became too much for his body. He went limp, unconscious again. Only, this time he was satisfied. Xiaowu was finally resurrected. His greatest desire was already achieved. Tang Hao's distinctive deep voice rang out. Little San is right. The departed are already gone. The living are still alive. He's stronger than me. He's resurrected you in just a few years. Child, treasure the people before you. Don't be sad and grieving. The past has already passed. You both should face a new life. Xiaowu raised her head to look at Tang Hao with eyes hazy with tears, and nodded softly. Thank you, uncle. Tang Hao smiled slightly. When you came here with him last time, that's not what he called me. Xiaowu blushed. She hadn't expected someone as dignified as Tang Hao to tease her, and the pain in her heart immediately eased a bit. She stammered. Dad. Tang Hao rubbed Xiaowu's head. Looking at his son in her arms, he said, Little San's vitality is seriously harmed, but his body is strong. He will improve with rest. Xiaowu silently hung her head, softly caressing Tang San's face. Dad, I will look after him well. When Tang San woke up again, it was already the next day. In 1 day's time, the blue silver emperor right leg bone's wildfire burns without end. The spring wind blows new life ability had already more than half restored him, even though he still felt pain all over, and his brain was still dizzy. Tang San was already in much better spirits. His senses restored, Tang San immediately felt his whole body relax. He discovered he was still in Xiaowu's arms, but his clothes had been changed, without any of the blood from Xiaowu's resurrection left. Xiaowu's head hung, asleep. Tang San didn't move, afraid of waking her up. Clearly, Xiaowu had looked after him the whole time, and was already completely exhausted. Slowly drawing a deep breath, Tang San roused his mind and sensed the changes in his body. Only if his body recovered would Xiaowu be relieved. As his mind gradually grew clearer, Tang San discovered that his meridians and bones hadn't changed noticeably, but his spirit power had suffered a certain fluctuation and was in chaos inside him. What had suffered the most was instead his mental strength. His mind was in complete disorder. Spirit ring abilities were controlled with mental strength, and could be said to be directly linked with the mind. Forcefully stripping away 5 spirit rings was naturally grievously harmful to Tang San's mental strength. Only, fortunately he still had that Sea God's trident brand. Even though his mental strength was a mess, it still hovered around his evolved mind condensing wisdom's soul bone, as if attracted by the Sea God's light. Even though his mind seemed to have fragmented, it didn't leave his control. Closing his eyes and operating the purple demon and cultivation technique, Tang San began to mend his mental world. That his body had only suffered this much from resurrecting Xiaowu was already a pleasant surprise to Tang San. At the same time, he couldn't help being filled with gratitude for the Sea God's power. If not for the Sea God's light, it would absolutely have been impossible to resurrect Xiaowu this smoothly, and also impossible to only temporarily give up spirit rings. He might not be the only candidate for becoming a god, but there might not be anyone else that dared strip away their spirit rings like him. Before he had absorbed spirit rings again, Tang San didn't dare be sure whether he could recover the blue silver emperor's various abilities, but without a doubt, his spirit power hadn't weakened. It was still at the 91st rank. It was just relatively weak and needed time to recover. Moreover, even if the blue silver emperor couldn't recover, it didn't matter. Each of the remaining 400,000 year spirit rings had 2 abilities. Just these were stronger than ordinary title Douluo. Besides, the blue silver emperor's damage wouldn't influence him absorbing spirit rings into his clear sky hammer, undoubtedly a manifestation of the advantage of twin spirits. His condition examined, and Xiaowu also being resurrected, Tang San calmed down and began to restore his mental strength. Through the little bit of mental strength he could control, he cautiously roused the Sea God's light, and then with the purple demon and cultivation technique through the Sea God's light, gathered and slowly fused the fragments of his mental strength. When he first got the Sea God's light he felt this ability was chicken ribs, as if the most it could do was scare those sea spirit beasts and sea spirit masters. But as time passed, Tang San discovered more and more of its marvelous uses. In some sense it was even more important than the Sea God trident. After all, with his current capabilities, the Sea God trident also needed the Sea God's light to produce its true power. Tang San used a full 3 days to completely restore his mental strength, and his body had also recovered on its own. also recovered on its own accord over the same time, returning to its original condition. Besides missing a few spirit rings and abilities, nothing much had changed. And from a wider perspective, his abilities really hadn't decreased. Xiaowu's spirit bone had been replaced by 2 even stronger spirit bones, and 5 spirit rings had been traded for 200,000 year spirit rings. Overall, his abilities were even stronger than before. Faint golden light filled his whole body. Right now Tang San was already sitting cross-legged by the ice and fire yin yang well, looking as if he was casting gold, glinting like jewelry. Tang Hao sat nearby watching his son. Xiaowu sat next to Tang Hao, her beautiful eyes filled with deep concern. Tang San's mother Yin's blue silver emperor body, ever since it was subjected to the sea god's light illumination that day, had grown another third in a short few days. Tang San's blue silver emperor was inherited from his mother, their blood interlinked. To an ordinary spirit master, that sea god's light would only feel bright and warm. If it was evil spirits, they would suffer a powerful attack. But to the constantly growing Yin, it was like a plant in sunlight. Adding in the connection between Tang San and her, she had obtained the greatest benefits from the sea god's light. Originally, the ice and fire yin yang well treasure ground had been speeding up her cultivation, and after being illuminated by this divine light, Yin's cultivation had already formally entered the 10,000 year level. To recover to this stage within a few years, reaching the blue silver king level, was close to inconceivable. Only, this was also related to Yin's history. She had originally cultivated to a 100,000 year spirit beast, and hadn't restarted from the lowest, the little blue silver grass. With the blood of the blue silver emperor, she was naturally familiar with the blue silver emperor's cultivation methods, and could advance with the simplest and most effective methods. Further being nourished by her son's blood, plus the assistance of the ice and fire yin yang well and sea god's light, she could recover this quickly. The illusory figure she could condense was already much clearer than when Tang San came here. Golden light blossomed 3 times, and withdrew 3 times, then finally returned to the sea god trident brand on Tang San's forehead, the faint golden light quietly disappearing from all over him. When Tang San opened his eyes, a gem-like light reappeared in his eyes, already back to the appearance he had when he came to the ice and fire yin yang well. Dad, Mom, Xiaowu. Tang San looked at his parents and lover. That kind of satisfying feeling made him even more excited than his mental strength recovering. Gee, the rims of Xiaowu's eyes reddened again, not minding that Tang Hao and Yin were still right next to her. She fiercely lunged, throwing herself into Tang San's arms. Tang Hao turned around with a smile, and Yin's silhouette also smiling melted back into her main body. They knew that lovers who could finally be together again would definitely have a lot to say, tightly holding each other, listening to each other's heartbeat. Whether Tang San or Xiaowu, their hearts were filled to the limit. For fear of losing the other, neither spoke, just holding each other tightly, as if they would merge together, even though it didn't feel much different from when Xiao, who was attached to her body before. At that time she still wasn't truly alive. At this moment, with the real living Xiaowu in his arms, Tang San felt as if each cell was cheering jubilantly. Xiaowu. Xiaowu, I love you, Tang San whispered with an almost trembling voice next to Xiaowu's ear. Xiaowu and a bit rigid, sharply raising her head to look at Tang San. 4 eyes met, endless deep emotion congealed. Whether for Tang San or Xiaowu, this was the day they had waited for far too long. Ge. I love you too. Again holding each other closely, their feelings rose once again, and on the middle finger of their left and right hand, the rings made from the blue silver emperor's thread sparkled. That was their engagement token, and at this moment, they truly felt that they possessed each other. After so many tribulations, they could finally be together again, but it was also because of so many experiences that their feelings for each other would grow so profound. Softly kissing Xiaowu's forehead, Tang San softly said, Little Wu, will you marry me? I'm finally entitled to ask you. I will. Xiaowu agreed without hesitation, her voice already choked, her eyes already filled with tears, but no longer tears of grief. Tang San said gently, once we've returned to Heaven Do City and reported to teacher, I will formally marry you. I will definitely give you a grand wedding, to let the entire world know that you are my wife. Your happiness is the greatest blessing of my life. I will love you all my life, and beyond. Even when the seas run dry and the rocks go soft, until the end of time, I will still never leave you. Xiaowu, choked with emotion, nodded hard. She couldn't say a word. She had never been as happy as now. Tang San raised his head and looked at his not distant father smiling at him and Xiaowu, and pulled Xiaowu's hand. Before we leave for Heaven Do City, there are still a few things to do. Xiaowu nestled her head against Tang San's chest, speaking softly. No matter what you do, I will follow by your side. Tang San brought Xiaowu over to his mother's enormous blue silver emperor. The first thing is to let Mom and Dad be as happy as us. 2 giant blue silver emperor leaves curled up, circling Tang San and Xiaowu. Dense motherly love rippled out from the leaves. Children, it's been hard on you. No matter what has passed, you can finally be together. Cherish each other. Me and your dad will be happiest as long as you are happy. Tang San immediately shook his head. No, Mom, I will let you and Dad truly be together like me and Xiaowu. You've suffered more than us. I didn't have the strength to help you before, to show my filial respect. But now that I'm back, I also believe I have that strength. What Tang San said next completely shocked Tang Hao and Yin. Dad, I will help restore your right arm and left leg. Mom, I will let you resurrect like Xiaowu. Even if I'm not absolutely sure of success, my methods definitely won't harm you. Even the experienced Tang Hao, whose mood was long since as calm as water, couldn't keep his expression from changing on hearing this, fiercely leaping over in front of Tang San, grabbing Tang San's shoulder with his one hand, excited. Little San, what did you say? You can bring your mom back to life? Tang Hao wasn't concerned with his own body, but when he heard his son say he could restore Yin's form, this news really was too exciting. Tang Hao and Yin's feelings were different from Tang San and Xiaowu. Besides that never-shrinking deep love, there were also a bunch of complex feelings mixed up within. Back then Yin sacrificed herself to save him, leaving their son without a mother, and Tang Hao's guilt towards them was obvious. If someone now told him they could trade his life for Yin's resurrection, Tang Hao absolutely wouldn't hesitate. Originally he had thought he would never see Yin again in his lifetime. The ice and fire yin yang well gave him the chance, allowing him to communicate with Yin again. Just that was enough to make Tang Hao ecstatic. If someone else told him they could resurrect Yin, Tang Hao might still have hesitated. This was too important to him, so he absolutely wouldn't try it without 100% certainty. He never wanted Yin to suffer any harm again, but this came from the mouth of his son. How could he not believe it? Setting aside their family relationship, just Tang San using the ice and fire yin yang well to speed up Yin's recovery gave Tang Hao a miraculously deep trust. Hearing what Tang San said, Yin was equally excited. She'd always buried the distress over seeing her husband's lost limbs deep in her heart. She clearly understood that Tang Hao had removed his spirit bones in order to cast away everything else to stay with her. But Yin also understood that Tang Hao still had far too many things he couldn't let go of. If she could resurrect, if Tang Hao's arm and leg could be restored, everything would doubtless be perfect. But was this really possible? One was missing an arm and a leg. One was a blue silver emperor that had just cultivated to the 10,000 year level. Could Tang San really return them to their peak?